want to remind you about this test. This test is just like normal. You've got around 25 multiple choice questions, which are embedded in the free response questions, basically, in that review. And then your FRQ questions are also embedded in those questions. So there are free response questions. There are multiple choice questions. Don't forget about your vocabulary. Those are very helpful in regards to the test. And make sure that you look over this review as well as your vocabulary and that you're ready for the test. Now, predominantly this test is a little easier than the other ones, but that doesn't mean not to study. That means study just as hard so we can do just as well and do a whole lot better than we have in the past. So yes, there are FRQ questions. No, I'm not going to give them to you. They're embedded in this review. Now, question number 1 is looking at physical geography, climate, and vegetation. And these questions on the review are going to be the ones that are straight from the test in regards to this section of the curriculum. Now, the first question, this says, what 2 physical features dominate the region? When you hear dominate, not only does it mean it has to be really big, but also it influences people dramatically. And these 2 physical features that dominate the region are the Andes Mountains and the Amazon River, also the Amazon rainforest. And you can see those there. The Amazon Mountains are on the western side here of South America. You can see it cuts a border in between Argentina and Chile. The mountains themselves are the border between these 2 countries. And then you also have the Amazon River. You can see that here running through this area. Very influential in regards to transportation as well as population density and settlement. Next question says, describe in detail how mountains affect the climate of Latin America. And what we're talking about here is how these different levels, these different elevations can affect the region differently. For example, this first zone, which is closest to sea level, is Tierra Caliente. It's hot. This is where you're going to have your tropical rainforest climate. This is where bananas are going to grow and other tropical crops, rice and livestock. And then you move on into the Tierra Templada range. This is the zone with the largest human population of Latin America because this is the zone where most of Latin America lies, elevation-wise. And you're going to have certain things that can be raised here in this elevation zone. Then you move on to the Tierra Fria. We're getting colder and colder, hence Fria, cold. Your highest zone in Central America. This is places like Mexico and some of those other areas in Central America. Now you're going to have things such as barley, potatoes grown. You're going to have a lot of grazing, some dairy operations in this area. And then you get to the extreme cold. I don't have any more blue, so I'm just going to go with the purple. And these are the areas where little life is going to be found, because these are on top of mountains, basically. So you can see how mountains affect climate, because in the different ranges it can get colder, because the higher up you are in regards to elevation, the colder that it's going to get. So we need to remember that in regards to Latin America. Now, back to physical geography and population density. One thing I do want to point out for you, and I don't want you to forget, is the Atacama rain shadow effect. This occurs in the western side of South America, and what makes it so unique is even though it's next to the coast, you still have a rain shadow effect, because the trade winds, which normally would go west to east, in Latin America they go from east to west. So they're coming across this direction, and they affect and create a rain shadow effect because of that. So that's a unique physical feature in this area, going along with the description of physical geography. Now describing how all this plays on human settlement and on population density. Remember, when we were talking about the population density of South America, there is a populated rim, and you can see that in regards to South America. Most of Central America is very highly populated, but in South America, it's this rim. The reason for that is you've got areas which are tropical rainforest zones, which are here. Then you can see highly settled the Amazon rainforest or the Amazon River itself. Along this river, you have high population, but in those green zones that I pointed out there, you don't. You also have some Brazilian highland zones here in blue, just because of the elevation that's going to be affected. Also, its latitude down here at the bottom, very close to Antarctica, so extremely cold, but where most of your population is going to be on this rim area, this area close to the coast. And you can see here in purple, you can see where the Andes Mountains are going to be affecting population as well, and as it's less populated because of it. So you can see how climate, vegetation, and physical features all come together in regards to population settlement. Now, one thing, it's not on review, but I do want to point out, don't forget about El Nino. Remember, in this area, El Nino affects the area because it brings more rain. It does that to North America as well. But don't forget that El Nino brings more rain to the region. Question number 2 is dealing with the history. First question says, describe how the Colombian exchange affected the culture of Latin America. Now, when you hear Colombian exchange, I want you to think about the exchange that was set up because of Christopher Columbus. This exchange is between Europe and Hispaniola, as you can see with a red line here, and it's between Africa and Hispaniola because of the exchange that was set up amongst slaves, and then it's from Europe to Africa because Europe was paying for these slaves through manufactured goods that they were creating out of the items that the slaves were getting from the Americas. So it's this Colombian exchange. That's what the Colombian exchange is dealing with. It's this exchange between Europe, the Americas, and then Africa itself. Now, how it affected the culture. Remember, this region of Hispaniola here had a lot of important agricultural products, which is going along with the next question. You had sugarcane in this region, which was very profitable. They were after this agricultural item. So they were sending African slaves, shipping them to the Americas so that they could get more of this product. And you got to remember that in this area of Africa where the slaves came from, it depended on what tribe you were looking at. Not only what geographic region in Africa that they came from, but also what tribe was in that region itself. So like this purple, this visual here, if it comes from this green region here, as they're shipped over, it's a total different culture than if it was going to come from this yellow area down here at the bottom. Total different culture. So you have the African culture that's there. You also already have an indigenous culture that is in the area of Hispaniola. Depending on what indigenous group, the beginning group that's there, you're going to have a different culture. And then finally, whatever European country came over and colonized, you're going to have a whole nother one. So essentially, you can have the most diverse region in the world because you've got different people that are coming over for this reason, which makes it extremely diverse in this area. Now, indigenous. Indigenous means that you are the native peoples to the area. The three predominant indigenous groups of the area are the Maya, the Aztec, and the Inca. Now, this question says, we've answered what it means, but it says, how do they modify the environment to produce farming? And that's what this picture is referring to. Remember terrace farming? That's what this looks like. You've got different cuts, different steps that are created because of this terrace farming. And what this does, you can see how they've modified the environment because you can literally see the changes that's being made to the environment. But as rain comes down, it pulls up in these areas here, making it better to grow. It also helps with erosion because you don't have landslides and mudslides because this land is keeping that from happening. But it also allows them to grow crops in these areas that then turn green because of this modification. So it's easy to see that it is modification, but they did this so that they can improve farming and create more crops because of this. Now the next question says, what were the 3 G's that all exploration revolved around? Remember, there's 3 G's that reflect any type of exploration. Gold, God, and glory. All exploration revolves around one of these three G's. You're either there to make the green, to find the gold. You're either there to spread the religion, and again, predominantly the religion that was spread was Roman Catholicism. Or you're there for glory for yourself, to make yourself look good. One of those three G's reflects every single type of exploration of the region. Now the next question says, in Peru, which G did explorers use or seek the most? The answer is gold. And they're also after gold and silver, but in the area of Peru, this is what they were after the most. Next question says, what was built in Panama? You had the Panama Canal created in Panama. Okay? And what the canal is. The canal, you can see by these red lines that's already on this, the canal no longer made it to where you had to travel all the way around the southern tip of South America to get back to the eastern side of the United States. You could cut that travel time down even further than half and just come through Panama. It connected the Atlantic Ocean with the Pacific Ocean, and it cut trade down a lot. Not just time, but also it was very dangerous to go across the southern tip of South America here because of its latitudinal location, and the waters were very dangerous. But also outside of that, it cut down time, which made much more money. This improved the economy of Latin America because you had a lot of shipping and things going through this area. And because it's a canal, you have different stops that are set up in this canal. So these ships, it took them a long time to get through the Panama Canal, and the people on the ships that were going through the Panama Canal could spend their money. But also, Panama could tax the ships that are coming through this canal and also make them more money. You put money in an economy, that makes everybody really, really happy. Now, question number 3 is dealing with the government and the economy. First question says, explain the development of the area. Now, what's becoming more and more in this area is industrial. It's becoming a more industrialized nation, and we're seeing that more and more because of globalization. Now, next question says, where are most of the jobs in regards to economic activity? Primary, secondary, tertiary, or quaternary? Now remember, if we are looking at industrial, then what we probably have a lot of is primary and secondary. Reason because of that is these industrial type jobs are more of the unskilled jobs that can be found in the secondary industries. Now, I don't want you to forget that because we have industrialization, we do need natural resources, which would put us at a primary economic activity. But because we are becoming industrial, we have more and more secondary economic activities in this area. Now, next question revolves around what type of internal migration has fueled industrialization. This is internal, not external. If we were looking at external, it would be migration towards the north. But that's not what we're looking at. We're looking at internal. And remember, this internal migration that we're seeing more and more is urbanization. Urbanization is dealing with people moving to the cities. They're moving to these cities for these secondary jobs because they're becoming industrialized. So because of industrialization, urbanization is going on more than ever in Latin America. Now, next question says, how has Nafta influenced industrialization of Latin America? Now remember, Nafta is an acronym. The N is dealing with North American Free Trade Agreement. So it's North America. So when we're looking at NAFTA, we're looking at the United States, Canada, and Mexico. Keep that in mind. That's the area that we're talking about in regards to NAFTA. But NAFTA has fueled industrialization because the United States is outsourcing. They are sending their unskilled jobs to Mexico. And because of that, in Mexico, they have a lot of secondary jobs. They have a lot of these industrial jobs that are available, which are good, but it's not always the best. Because outsourcing is also creating urbanization. And we talked about, because of this rapid urbanization going on in Latin America, that it's not always influencing people the best. There's a lot of people that are out of jobs. There's a lot of people that are living in cities that have terrible conditions, living conditions. And so they're struggling to get by. But they don't have a choice. Because they're moving to a more industrialized nation, and because they're moving to a more urban society, that the farms that they used to work on are now run by commercial farms. They're now commercial agricultural businesses, and they can't go back to the farms. So they're stuck being sad. They're stuck without a job, and they're stuck with living in these poor, urbanized areas. Question number 4 is dealing with population. First part of the question says, what religion unifies the area? Now, yes, I understand that it is Christianity, but I'm looking for a more specific branch, and that is Roman Catholicism. Now, in looking at why this dominates the region, it's because a lot of the European countries that settled the area were Roman Catholic, so they brought their religion with them. Now, that runs into the problem of, well, what about the Americans that came over and tried to influence the religion of the area? These were Protestants. Remember, with the Protestant Reformation, we had an outbreak from Roman Catholicism and a new branch of Christianity was created. And so the American people, the American branch that was brought to the area because of missionaries, was Protestantism. Now, the next question says, what unites the region as a whole? Well, there's a lot of things, but it all goes down to their culture. Yes, they do share common language. Most of the area speaks Spanish because Spain colonized most of the area. Yes, most of the area is Roman Catholic, and so you could say that the religion dominates the area. Yes, food is very similar. They share a lot of the same holidays. All of these come together to create a shared culture of the area. Now, next question says, what has occurred in many places such as Jamaica in regards to religion? Now, I don't necessarily need for you to know that Rastafarianism is the religion that's predominant in Jamaica. What I'm looking is for you to understand that vocabulary word, syncretism. This is when you have a blend of religions. This is when the ideas blend. Remember, this area is extremely diverse, and because of that, just like everything else, things start to blend. And Jamaica, being as extremely multicultural as it is, they have a syncretism going on with their religion, and Rastafarianism has been created because of that. Question number 5. This is looking at the current events of the area. Question number 5 reads, overall, what is the area more than ever doing in regards to economic activity? It is industrializing more than ever. Because of this, you have jobs such as those primary and secondary type jobs that are available. But overall, it is industrializing. Now, in regards to this, don't forget about Nafta and how this has improved the area with outsourcing. But it's done this. And then how has globalization affected this? This goes back to Nafta. This is also talking about outsourcing, how the United States has outsourced a lot of its jobs to Mexico so that it can produce jobs with produce things with cheap labor. And it all goes back to industrialization, to Nafta, and to the connectedness of the world and how that is improving opportunities to industrialize. Now, next question. What recent sports event reflects the emotions towards the shared sport of the area? And that is soccer. I was going to draw a soccer ball for you here, but I would fail miserably at this. But to reflect the fervor that is felt among most of the citizens of Latin America, Brazil was chosen to host the 2014 World Cup because of their passion for the sport and because of so many people in the area that are strongly tied to this sport. Now, last part of this question says, describe the situation of the quality of life in all of Latin America. Explain why this is the case. Give you a heads up. This is one of your essential questions here, or one of the parts of the essential questions. You're looking at seeing overall of Latin America what's going on economically. And as you can see here, we have a wide range of economic activity of the area. Brazil, Mexico, highly industrialized areas. You can look at their GDP in billions of their economy. Very, very high. Argentina doing fairly well, but then you look on the other scale of like Belize or Suriname or Guyana. We are extremely low. The economic area, this area varies. That's what I'm looking at here. The quality of life of this area varies depending on where you are. If you're in some of these nations that are doing very well economically, then predominantly people are doing very, very well. They're happy. But if you're in some of these areas that are very, very low, like these areas here, people are not as happy. Quality of life is worse. So it just depends. It varies because of their location. It varies because of where they are and what they are next to. And because of this, it varies on what type of government that they have. How free is their economic spectrum? How free are they? It also goes back to their ties to their European country. Do they have freedom? Are they limited by their European country? Are they still a colony of an area in Europe? If so, that European country may be negatively affecting them because they're not so worried about them. But if they're on their own, and if they have government freedom, then they're in these areas here. So it depends on their government. It depends on their location in regards to their resources around them. It depends on if they are becoming industrialized. It depends on all of those things in regards to their quality of life. But the main thing, again, is that it does vary depending on where you are, what European country you have, and how much government freedom you have.